Good afternoon. All right, so what we're going to work on today is we're going to go through the settings that will probably help you make your frame rate more consistent in Rainbow Six Siege. We're going to go through the Windows settings. I'm pretty much going to cover all the settings that you would need to go through to make sure that your frame rate is going to stay stable. If you're having things happen like frame drops in the game or inconsistent frames, etc., um, overloading of frames in the load screen, all of those kind of deals, um, lag or um, jitters, things like that. Now, keep in mind, all setups are different. My setup, I have a 2080 Ti OC ROG Strix GPU. I have a Ryzen 9 5900, and I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. So um, take that with a grain of salt. The settings are in general, it should work for your setup. Um, Overall, these are just basic. So we're going to start with the Windows settings. So what you're going to want to do is start in your, as soon as the game wants to let me get out of here. Okay. Oh, you probably hear my dog. All right. So you're going to want to start on the desktop. Right click, NVIDIA control panel. All right. What we want to look for is manage 3D settings. You have a set of global settings. You have a program settings. My recommendation is to run Rainbow Six Siege in Vulkan. It is more stable. The sound settings are the sound quality is better overall. Just a more stable version of Siege. If you don't have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege Rainbow Six underscore Vulcan.exe, you want to add it and find it. So you'll probably have the standard version. You want to select Rainbow Six Siege Vulcan.exe. Wait for it to load. You want your settings to look something like this. So you may want to pause and take a good look. I'm going to scroll down past CUDA GPUs. Okay. Low latency mode on. Max frame rate. These are what I'm going to focus on. So the first few weren't that intense, but these are what we're going to look at. Low latency mode. You want it turned on. Max frame rate. Okay. Here's what's important. You want to turn it on. And I have mine set to 200. Now, my frame rate on my monitor is 165. You want to set your max frame rate to 30 frames or about 30 frames over your output. So if you have a frame rate of 144, you want to set it to 175. If you have a frame rate of 165, set it to 200. If you have a frame rate of 120, set it to 150. You catch my drift. So there's no point to having your output frame rate from your game give you more than what your output on your monitor is. So, because you're not getting that out of your monitor. You're not, even though you're getting 300 frames in the game, you're not getting those frames out of your monitor. It is not going to give you more than what your output is. So, the reason why you set it to 30 frames over is to compensate for any frames loss, any frames drop. And generally that tends to be in between 40 to 30, 50 to 30 frames ish average. So we're compensating for that. So you want to turn this on and set it for 30 frames over whatever your output on your monitor is. That means the output of hertz. So my hertz is 165. I set it to 200. If yours, like I said, is 144, 175, set that number. If yours is 120, set it to 150. Okay. Let's see. G-Sync compatible should be there. Multi-frames off. OpenGL rendering, you want to set it to whatever your GPU is. So you're going to click that, select your GPU. Power management mode. You want to select maximum performance. So prefer maximum performance. Prefer to refresh rate highest available. Texture filtering off. Negative LOD allow. Quality is quality. Okay, I'm going to scroll down. Last few ones. The most important one here is vertical sync off and virtual reality rendered frames 1. That should be what you are here. If you made any changes, you're going to see an option down here to click OK or apply. Make sure that is clicked OK or apply. All right, that's done for NVIDIA settings. A few things you want to check in your Windows settings as well is in your gaming section. So when I click down to Windows, I went to the cog, I clicked gaming. I am checking Xbox Game Bar. You want to make sure that's off, and game mode is off, toggled off. You also want to go down to System, Display, okay, Advanced Display Settings. You want to make sure your refresh rate on your main monitor is set to the highest possible. So you select, if you have multiples, make sure they're all set. At least your main monitor is set to its highest possible refresh rate. Sorry, I clicked out. We should have gone back. System, Display, and Graphics Settings. Here, you want to make sure hardware accelerated GPU scheduling is on, variable refresh rate on. Click out of that. All right, that takes care of pretty much all the Windows settings that you can for your refresh rate. Make sure your graphics driver is up to date. You probably have NVIDIA. You go to NVIDIA GeForce Experience, update your graphics driver. Mine's up to date. You just go to driver, check to make sure you're up to date. All right, now we're going to check the in-game settings. Oh, there's one more thing we have to check. Okay, so for your game, Rainbow Six Siege, you want to go down to your Files, Documents, My Games, Rainbow Six Siege. This is before you launch the game, so do not launch the game while you're doing this. You select the file that is your game, game settings. What this looks like is a big old notepad. What you're going to want to do is check two things. You want to check right here that you make sure and have your refresh rate set to your highest possible. So mine's 165. It should be 165, whatever your refresh rate is. The other thing you are double checking is the output frame rate. And that is, it should say 200. Where is it? Let's see. I haven't had to do it in so long, so let's see. Refresh rate. It's maybe not this one. Hold on. I have one where I changed it. It might be this one. $200. You can max it out at 200 if you want here. But I know I did it, so let's see. Sec. One of these should say 200. There we go. Sorry. FPS limit. It is there. So you're in your game settings. My apologies. I was overlooking it. In the top section of this notepad, you want to look at FPS limit. You want to click your cursor directly next to the equal sign with no spaces. Delete whatever number is there and type in 200. So FPS limit, it's in the first section, fourth up from the bottom. FPS limit, you change it to whatever the maximum frame rate was that you changed it in your NVIDIA settings. So remember in the NVIDIA control panel where we changed it to 30 frames above what our output is, you want to type that number there. So if your frame rate output on your monitor is 120, you type in 150 here. If your frame rate is 144, you type in 175 here. Mine is 165 output, so I typed in 200. Whatever that number is, you want to make sure it matches where it says FPS limit. Once you've made that change, you come up here and you click Save. Close out of the game file, and now you can launch your game. You want to launch wherever you're launching it from. So if you're launching it from Steam, you want to launch Vulkan. If you're launching it directly from the Uplay app, you would click play and then it gives you an option to launch Vulkan. So we're going to launch into Vulkan. All right, and we just wait for the game to load. A sec, and we're almost done. So we're going to check the in-game settings in reference to your GPU. All right. And you can fast forward or slow down or pause or wherever you need to go and go back over everything or skip something if you've already done it. But my recommendation is go through everything at least once and make sure you have all those settings done. Now that you've worked with your Windows settings as well as your graphics settings in your desktop, now we're going to work about game settings. So once you launch in, what you'll notice is in the upper left corner, my frame rates are not going to go anywhere higher than 200, and they're not going to go any lower. Well, they did for just a split second, but it's loading. So it's not going to go any lower than 165. That's the goal anyway. So I have my frames turned on at the top. So what we're doing, what the goal is while we're in the loading screen, we don't want to output more frames than what we set it to. We don't want to overload the frames because you're allowing the game to have more frames than it needs, and that's not necessary. Especially if you're a streamer, that helps in preventing your stream from lagging when you're loading into a game. All right, so what you want to do is load into options, display. You want to make sure you're on your main monitor. Make sure you have your resolution set. Full screen is going to give you the best output for frames. And then once you click in the other ones, it locks you at 60. And so the game, even though you're getting the frames up here, it's not giving you more frames than 60. So keep that in mind. So full screen will give you your full access to your 165 frame rate. Your aspect ratio, mine, I always run 5:4. You can run whatever aspect ratio you want. Doesn't really affect it. VSync off, FPS limit off. Field of view, you want to set that at 90, and then whatever other options you have. Did I change something? I didn't change anything, did I? No. All right, so graphics. NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency off, Latency Flash off, overall quality. Now, keep in mind, I have 1100 or 11,000 megabytes, and I'm using 6,000 of them. You may have something different because your graphics card might be slightly different. The most important thing to grasp from all of this is your texture quality is the only thing that you need to have remotely close to being on high. So I would recommend, if you don't do anything else, make sure you run your texture quality on very high or ultra if you can manage. Texture filtering does need to be 16 times. LOD quality, you can have that somewhere in mid-range. Shading quality, medium. Shadow quality, high. Reflection quality, medium. VFX, ultra. That's something like, when smoke pops, you don't want to see pixels. When smoke throws his smoke, or when someone throws a flashbang, stuff like that. You don't want it to be pixely. So VFX, video FX quality, ultra. Ambient occlusion off, lens effect off, zoom in depth of field on. Sometimes people turn this off, that's okay. NVIDIA DLSS, I have it set to auto. Now, if you do not have an NVIDIA graphics card, this does not apply to you. So NVIDIA things do not apply to you if you do not run an NVIDIA graphics card. Just keep that in mind. You want to make sure anti-aliasing is TAA. Now, this could be grayed out. Just make sure it says TAA. Adaptive render scaling, turn that off. Render scaling 100, TAA sharpness 100. Now, as far as your megabytes here for your memory on your GPU, the only where that matters is this section right here. So high, medium, you can run those all on low if you want to. The two most important ones are the VFX quality and the texture quality. And texture filtering, definitely 16 times. But everything in here, LOD, shading, shadow, reflection, those you can all run on low if you need to adjust your megabytes or your memory here. And then once you have that all set, you're good to go. Now, I prefer running accessibility on the pink color, but that's always up to you. The opacity and screen shake. That's the last thing I want to tell you. This does not affect your frames in any way, but I would definitely recommend turning screen shake off. Like if Thermite is busting open the wall near you and he does it right when you're trying to get a kill, the screen shake will not affect you if you try to get that kill. So make sure you turn that off. Anyway, that's the last little tidbit. Other than that, you should be good to go. If you have any questions, let me know. Hit me up in Discord. Otherwise, have a good day.